Hello, hola.
It is nice to see you again. So yeah, thank you for this accepting this invitation. I would like you to present also Juan Alberto Gaviria.
John, great to see you too, and thank you so much for attending our call of interviewing these wonderful people that have had the Medellin experience, and also how wonderful you taught us and we learned from your work.
All right, well, thank you for having me. I'll be absolutely honest when I say that Medellin is very, very close to my heart. I've made some, wonderful friends there, including both of you, but I still stay in touch with a number of people from those things. So it's been a real high point of my life, high point of my career as a photographer. And I'm forever grateful for the opportunity that you had invited me down there, because it was both a great experience. It was a great cultural experience as well. I started photography quite young. I imagine I was 7 or 8 years old. And what got me into photography was actually the early manned space program here in the United States. I was fascinated by science and just absolutely taken by this great adventure of humans leaving the face of the earth and going on some great exploration of the unknown. So as a child, as a little kid, it was inspiring. Obviously, life came full circle later in my photography career with my book on the space shuttle program. But that's actually what got me into photography. I was like glued to Life magazine. If you're familiar with Life, that had some great photojournalists. So as a kid, if I couldn't watch it on TV, I would like just spend hours looking at the pictures. So I made a promise to myself, and I used to always tell my students years later that your first roll of film, don't be emotionally involved with it, because you got to learn how to load the film on the reel and process the film properly before you want to commit to. So that was a lesson I learned early on. But so that's how I got into photography, and I just became fascinated by it, and built a dark room in my parents' house. I even experimented with color processing, because I used to look at US camera, something like that. And I read an article where you could take these 5-gallon kits of color processing chemicals and break them down into small, like you could mix up a half a gallon or 52 ounces. And so I was sitting in my mom's kitchen table with measuring cups with all this chemistry, breaking them down into these small packages. It took forever to do it. I processed one roll of color film. I couldn't print it. I processed the film. The negatives came out okay, but it was too much work. But I think it was part of my love of science, because it was chemistry. And but when I graduated from high school, I worked at a camera store, and so I was just kind of consumed by photography. Graduated from high school, and everybody said, "What are you going to do with your life now? You're done with school. What are you going to do with your life?" And heck, I was just happy to be done with school. I just wanted to enjoy life. And I just, to literally to quiet them, I said, I'm going to be a photographer because that's what I love to do. Eventually I went to college, got my degree in photography there in a fine art program.
Yeah, yes. And then you took some, like a workshop or something with Ansel Adams. So,
Yes.
So you went there to his lab and
Yep.
Amazing. It must have been like when you say that you saw that developing the way he developed that, it must have been like magic, seeing the details and the it must have been amazing. I understand that you also had some friends that some of them exhibited here. I believe Linda Troller, right? Was she?
Yeah, Linda. I met Linda at an Ansel Adams workshop.
The University of Antioquia. It's developing a specialization in analogous thing. It's very important to hear that now that young generations are interested in that.
Well, they have a program on research. It's I don't know if it's a master program, but it's more like a research group or research team, and they are trying to experiment a lot on older technologies. Exciting how to see. We were talking a lot about magic. The magic happens and the image appears on the surface.
I always think that's good that universities offer those kind of courses, because I think it's good for a contemporary photographer who's only been used the digital medium in their pursuit of photography, but to have some experience with the roots of photography and where photography came from. When I was a university professor, I loved teaching both basic photography, basic film photography, and digital photography, because it gave me an opportunity to build the bridge between the new technology and how that new technology was developed from an understanding of the previous technology.
Other chapter of your life is the publishing of a book, which was also, when I was curator at the gallery, it was very daring for me. Also, we were into more like artistic photography, but then these wonderful photographs of the landing of the Challenger, the rockets. How did you ended up? And of course, with your research in mind, I can understand that NASA pick up on you. Please tell us, how did you get involved in that?
I basically, that's how I got into photography, was my fascination with space travel.
Yes.
Of course, I kept close monitoring of it as I got older and went through school and graduated from high school. As a matter of fact, the summer I graduated from high school, I flew down to Cape Canaveral to see an Apollo launch. I didn't know what I was doing. I just wanted to see it. I just got on a plane, flew to Orlando, and didn't know where to go from there. Took a shuttle to Titusville and to the Space Center, and I didn't have a car or anything, so I walked out to the NASA Causeway and I'm hitchhiking. And this guy picks me up. He says, "You can't be hitchhiking here. This is government property." He picked me up, took me into Titusville, said, "This is a great place to watch the Saturn go up." So I watched the Saturn take off right out of high school. Forget, I think it was Apollo 17 or something like that, or not, Apollo 15. And so in college, I was studying photography and studied photo history. A lot of it was documentary type photography. I mean, like the kind of stuff that I used to look at in Life magazine. But I was also introduced to a lot of artists and of course, Ansel Adams and his majestic landscapes. So when I graduated from college, it was right when the space shuttle started flying. So I still had that in my head of, documentary photography, but I wanted to do an elevated documentary. I didn't want to be journalistic in that sense. I wanted to be,
Exactly.
I wanted to portray the space program like Ansel Adams portrayed the national parks, that they were these huge, majestic pictures that inspired people. And so I really had to relearn everything, purchase new camera equipment. I eventually went with Hasselblad because it was the biggest format I could use effectively to get, pictures that had the kind of quality I was looking for that you get with view cameras. So I literally relearned everything. It was like starting over, but I was so driven to do it that it was like problem solving,
Now, one thing that in our talks, that you develop like a whole system of like different cameras in the landing field,
Yep.
and that will be, clicking on as the Challenger was landing. Technically, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. Well, that was one of those things that it demanded to design equipment to be able to get the pictures. Because, sure, I could get a long telephoto lens, but as any photographer knows, shooting through 3 miles of atmosphere, that atmosphere acts like a filter, and you don't get these sharp, crisp pictures because you just have so much, and the atmosphere varied, especially in Florida because of the kind of weather. So if you shot long pictures, you either had like heat waves in them, or they were soft because of the humidity that was in the air. So the only way you could get sharp pictures was to be close to the subject. And when I mean close, I mean 1,000 feet away. Well, so I designed protective housings for my cameras. I designed a trigger that could listen to the sound of the rocket and start the cameras running.
Amazing.
And we did like 3 versions of the trigger till we settled on a final version. It was problem solving. It's something I learned from Dr. Land, who invented the Polaroid system. He says, you can define the problem, you can solve it. And I always had that so I defined the problem. This was the problem. I needed to be close to the shuttle. I needed a device that could trigger the cameras, and needed something that was reliable. And so I invented these camera triggers, and some of those photos in the book of the close-up of the rocket was with a remote camera. So it took a couple of years just to get to the point that I probably had pictures that I thought were the ones I was looking for.
And you finally published a book.
Yeah, I after 25 yeay I published a book. Yes, I did. I published a book after 20 some years that I started working down there. The book is called First Fleet, NASA's Space Shuttle Program from 1981 to 1986. Okay, I'm going to read this paragraph in the acknowledgments of the book. The negatives for this project were kept in storage for over 25 years, and if it weren't for a trip to Medellin, Colombia in 2013 to participate in Zoom Lab 1, this book might never have become a reality. It was there that the seed was planted to finish this project. I will always be indebted to what has become known as the Colombian Board of Directors, whose members encouraged me to finish this project for their support and encouragement. Thank you to fellow board members, Juan Alberto Guerrero. Your name is a little long.
I went to PhotoFest with Juan, and I met you, and I met so many other fantastic photographers, and it was really fantastic. And that's why I invite you to be part of one of the Zoom labs. In this case, what's sub-objective on this view on the city. And if you were presenting these images of the walls, could you explain that? How does it work?
Yeah, I guess that's probably kind of tied in with the shuttle stuff, where I use technology to get the pictures. One little sidebar is I use the original Apple Macintosh computer to design my camera triggers. And so that was the first thing where I was mixing computer technology in with my photography. It eventually evolved into using Photoshop to replace the dark room, and to get back to what I said earlier about being influenced by artists and outside of photography, like abstract expressionists. So my later work involved shooting walls, and people go, so why are you shooting walls? Well, one day I had an experience that I was standing in front of a Pollock in the Museum of Modern Art, and from across the room, the painting kind of spoke to me. But as I got closer and closer to it, it kept speaking louder and louder. And before I knew it, I'm like right up on the surface of the canvas. And I'm looking at all the minute details that his technique of dribbling. And I saw, a cigarette butt or something embedded in all that paint. And I'm going, oh my God, what an experience this is. And I left there going, could I do that with photography? On the scale of painting, sure, you can get photos so big that has that kind, but I wanted big things that had that same impact. So I used this thing on a wall where I would shoot 4 frames up and 4 frames across, I think is what the proportions worked out to be. Mm-hmm. And so I developed a way of like looking at this wall, because I found myself standing in front of walls having the same kind of experience I had in the museum.
It is like what Alfredo Jaar, the Chilean artist, he said, you don't take a picture, you make a picture. You make a photo. So it's, very interesting.
Yeah, I think I used to, thing is like photography is a mirror of society. So my work today is very different, very abstract. That exhibition in what it was, Zoom Lab 4, I think it was, or all the pictures in that exhibition were done. They were walls that I had done in Colombia.
They're urban landscapes.
Yeah. And what I found there is that walls have a very distinct culture all their own that were reflected in the materials of the place, like these bricks. I mean, talk about bricks, you know, in Colombia and all these red bricks and everything, but they're very unique shape, style that you don't see here in the States. So you know, the walls were always different in Colombia.
Tell us about, you know, your experience we want to thank you about the timing that it took. Like, we went to 6 or 7 schools all over the barrios of Medellin.
Well, it was exhausting but exhilarating all at the same time, because we would visit these schools, and sometimes we visited like 4 in a day. But
you came here to work.
The thing is, you know, we might have seemed tired going in between each school, but I'll tell you, when we got in there with the kids and the energy and their enthusiasm, it was great. It was, you know, and that's what I mean by, you know, coming to Colombia was a cultural experience as well for me.
Well, we want to thank you to taking all that time, because it's art, and now this whole tendency of, you know, that art can also help to social transformation, which we all need it, and especially with young generations. And when they see a light through art, we are witness that it has changed their lives. So,
Yep.
You know, thank you so much, John, for that last, you know, this having given time of yourself to do this social art transformation in those kids, which many of them, you know, passed through the university. They were transformed. You know, sometimes I meet them in some commercial centers or something, and hey, Juan, you know, I'm here working. Just life, you know, it makes sense, their lives through art. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for assisting to Artist Talks, a program run by Colombo Americano and the Embassy of the United States.